What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another Game Time Discussions. I'm Emery Cuzzy. I'm sitting here with Cameron Selby, and we're going to be going over the Black Friday slate between the Kansas City Chiefs and the Las Vegas Raiders. I was going to say Oakland. I don't know what was about to happen, but I'm excited about this slate though because I think that truly this game is very wide. The Chiefs are currently a -13 favorite. The over/under is 42.5. The Raiders are the away team going to KC. Lots of ways to build, but I expect most of them to be 5-1s, 4-2s towards the KC side of the game because of the fact that it's just very one-sided. We don't even know who's going to play quarterback for the Raiders at this point. Could be anybody, except for Mr. Gardner Minshew.
Right. Yeah, and it actually has been bet down to 12.5.
That's good.
But still, if you don't include the Thursday games, it is more than 5 points bigger than the second highest total or second highest spread on the entire week.
Right.
So really, Vegas doesn't think this will be close. But I think a lot of people are starting to kind of gravitate towards, a closer game because of, like you said, the last two games have come down to the wire in Kansas City, even though there have been some blowouts in 4 or 5 years ago. We're doing, especially in the NFL, it's like 2 games, 2 season sample size at best.
Right, for sure.
And so it's what have you done for me now? Last year in Kansas City on Christmas, not Black Friday, but Christmas, they actually upset Kansas City. And I believe it was the same 2-touchdown favorite kind of scenario. They played once this year. They played close. Kansas City right now is just playing close games. Even Carolina brought it down to the wire this past week. Whereas the Raiders are just kind of in shambles at quarterback. Obviously, Gardner Minshew broke his collarbone. He's out for the season. Coincidentally, Aiden O'Connell, who broke his thumb, could be returning, and they're optimistic that he could return. But also Desmond Ridder, who's on his 4th team in as many or less than that many years.
Will not enjoy watching the game if Desmond Ridder
Exactly.
is the starter, basically.
It's tough. It's really interesting. But then there's also, other than that, there's the running back questions for both teams. Is Isaiah Pacheco going to return? Is Alex Madison and Zamir White going to remain out like they both were this past week? And obviously Amir Abdullah had basically every single running back touch essentially this week without him, without both of them. So be really interesting. We're playing a lot of if-then statements because of that. But, it's a fun slate to talk about for sure.
Yeah, let me pull it up on the screen. You can see it hopefully now. Looking at the away team, it's going to be the Las Vegas Raiders. Talking about some of their guys, but if you want to, go through the pass catchers, let's put it on the flex. Brock Bowers is the number one guy right now. Jacoby Myers and Brock Bowers, both of them are just the only 2 guys that they want to throw the ball to, basically. But you do see that Trey Tucker's on here, DJ Turner. The other guy that's caught the ball a little bit is Michael Mayer. So this is the group that you're going to attack if you're going to be going with any receivers. If you're going to go with the 5-1, you're probably going to be picking one of these guys to be your bring back on the Las Vegas side. So
right, yeah, and so really DJ Turner actually had a decent amount of snaps this past week. He saw an outlier of a week when Jacoby Myers was out where he had 95%. But other than that, he's been 50-ish or below since week 7, and he jumped up to 66 this week. Jacoby Myers played all but 1 snap for the Raiders, and it showed because he had a 100-yard game. That was a great call by you as him as a mid-tier play. Trey Tucker has still been around 90% all season. In terms of snaps, his usage has been spotty. But last week finally had a boom game again for the first time in a while. He'd been hovering around, 6 opportunities or below in every single game since week 7. And again, that was with Jacoby Myers out. But 4,400 reasonable price. Brock Bowers, again, he's been top 2 tight end the entire season. He had 10 targets this past week. Couldn't really connect much. He actually hooked with one of our props of the week. But he's viable in every slate. Kansas City's actually been a bad matchup against tight ends this year. The week 8 first matchup, again, one of the games where he just kind of had an okay game, and it was largely because he started out with 3 receptions. They didn't target him until the final drive.
Yeah.
It was one of those weird games where it's just like he started out 3 catches on the first drive or 2, and then all of a sudden just was not used at all until the 4th quarter, which was frustrating with some exposure there. But Jacoby Myers, I believe he missed that last game, or no, it was his first game back. Against Kansas City, and I think he had a modest game.
Pull it up. Hold on.
Yeah, 12.2 or
17.
17.
Yeah, that's not
because he
it's not
scored a touchdown.
necessarily modest.
Well, 6 for
That's-
52 is pretty modest.
Yeah, for
because
him.
he has 11 target, 100-yard games, but that was his only touchdown in this sample size, at least without Devontae Adams since he's left the team. But yeah, very solid play, very safe, and like you said with the Raiders, it doesn't matter how you view this game, you need one at least.
Right.
So it just depends on if you want to go the mid-tier route, which is Jacoby. I think he might be the most popular Raider because of that. And then if you want to go all the way up to Brock Bowers, you can do that, or you can just go all the way down. Michael Mayer, again, he's returned. His snap share has been 50% and 44% in the 2 games since he's been back, but he's gotten 5 targets in those 2 games, caught a couple. He's a really solid tight end that just stats are not going to show it until he moves on to another team. I hope he does soon so that he doesn't get lost in the shuffle of the tight end.
Yeah, I agree.
Realm.
It's sad because he is so good. But at the same time, like, I love having 2 tight ends. It allows us to do so much. As for the Raiders, we need a quarterback, but truly, I don't hate our core of players all the way around. So that's at least good. But looking at the next grouping,
I just wish he would wear a sleeve, because every single time that he and Brock Bowers are running routes, they look
I
like
have
the
no
same
idea
exact
who's
person,
who.
because
Yeah.
they're both 6'4", they're both 260, and they're both, Caucasian.
Yeah,
so to
it's
speak.
it's tough to tell which one is which.
One has an 88, one or
89
and
and
one's
the 87. It's
tough.
definitely not sure who's who until they catch the ball. But let's look at the running back situation, because Alexander Madison, of course, but Amir looked really good. Zamir White on there. These 3 guys, and of course, Alexander Madison is not 9,300. I'm sorry, guys. Let me pull that over to 6,200 if he does play. Basically, if he comes back, I expect him to be the guy. You could definitely be getting him at 6,200 as your 1 guy or 2 second guy from the Raiders side, because he has been pretty good. Against KC earlier in the year, he was awful. I was going to point that out, but he did have the receiving
Kansas
work.
City is really good against running backs. They're one of the top run defenses in football. And you see that on 14 attempts for 15 carries, but it's just a passing volume. He's gotten at least 5 targets or 30 yards essentially in every single game that he's been a starter outside of the Cincinnati game. So he is in the pool. He's basically everything that we would say about Amir Abdullah if both of them were out applies to him. I would expect that Zamir White would not play, and Alex Madison is more of the question mark because Zamir is actually dealing with the quad. But even if he does play, he's been the one that's been kind of phased out because he hasn't had more than 35% of the snaps since week 4.
Yeah.
So really, it's just kind of which scat back would you prefer if one of these two play, or if Alex plays. But if he doesn't, Amir Abdullah, I kind of flirted a little bit on Sunday Live when I brought up, like, what if Dylan Lobb is just like the guy nobody expects? Never even mustered any kind of ownership with him, but just pointing out the question. But Amir Abdullah basically got all the snaps. 90% of the snaps as a scat back was pretty insane. Only 14 opportunities, but 5 receptions, 37 yards, and then the touchdown, 17.5 points. Killed value if you invested in him at 4,300. 5,800, probably not enough of a price tag for him for the role if both are out.
Right, for sure.
And so if that happens, that might gravitate towards him being by default my 1 Raider if I'm doing a 5-1 build.
Perfect. Well, I don't disagree with that. I mean, if everybody's out, Amir Abdullah is a solid play. 5,800 is pretty modest for the starting running back on any team ever on a showdown. So
right.
But that's basically everything we have to talk about for the Raiders. It's pretty self-explanatory. We do have to, of course, add any kicker on any, because even last night
Carson's a good kicker.
Yeah, he's a great
Pro
kicker.
Bowler, 90%,
15 points right there, man.
Yeah,
like,
and DFS wise, he's got 15-point upside. He had 4 field goals last week. It's just one of those things where you're predicting the right kicker to score 2-3 field goals.
Well, the question is also, how many times have we seen the losing team's kicker do well? Cam Dicker
last night,
literally, for the Chargers. Greg Joseph over Brandon Aubrey. It's just
name a few. Yeah.
There's a plethora of them. So
it's been a whole thing on Showdown this year with kickers and just trying to get them right and
get kickers
and what have you
out of fantasy football.
Only when we're wrong. Only when we're wrong.
I've been wrong in
Just too
fantasy itself way too much this year for kickers. But yeah, let's go over. As you can see, it's pretty modest pricing for these guys because Travis Kelce's only 9,600 at the top. DeAndre Hopkins, Xavier Worthy. Let's go down. Juju, I guess.
Yeah, Juju had 55% of the snaps this past week.
Nice.
His second game returning from his hammy.
The real MVP, Noah Gray.
4 touchdowns in 2 games.
Let's check this out.
Yeah,
like
he sniped a very chalky Travis Kelce this past week, where Kelce basically had his modest day but just didn't score. Noah Gray scored twice. He also did against Buffalo.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what to make of it. He's still too cheap if you want to just play the what have you done for me lately game. But if you just are projecting regression, which I would be shocked if
I'd
he
hope
did another
sooner or later
another double touchdown game.
Yeah,
but
right.
because of his red zone upside, because he even in spite of those 4 touchdowns that we saw, and usually that's pretty abnormal for a tight end too. He actually has a decent amount of red zone looks throughout his career with Patrick Mahomes. So
it's also gonna say
it's not like far fetched to assume that he can't still return value if he just has a modest game.
I was gonna look. Whoa, that's the wrong team. Let's Kansas City red zone targets so far this year. Where are you? Noah Gray has 5. Travis Kelce has 16 at this point. So that's a pretty big
who's
gap.
The next? Well, I understand it's a gap between the two, but who's the next?
Well,
after Travis
who do you
Kelce?
think? Honestly, who would you guess?
DeAndre Hopkins.
No, it's Xavier Worthy. DeAndre Hopkins
I was going to say
has
Xavier, but
5.
I thought you were going to say like, oh, he's had
No.
more than.
Yeah,
okay.
It's Xavier Worthy. He has 13, but also he's been on the team, so that helps. DeAndre Hopkins has 5 since joining the team, though, and that's, I believe, let's see, the most he's in the last 4 weeks, right? So 5. Xavier Worthy has 4 since DeAndre Hopkins has joined. Travis Kelce has by far the most, though. It's 7.
And I've also seen something interesting of with DeAndre Hopkins is that he was traded for a conditional pick, and a lot of that condition is purely off of snap percentage,
yes,
not games played, which is normally what it is. So basically, he's been hovering under 50% of the snaps each of the last 2 weeks. His volume and target share is solid, in those games, but at the same time, I think that's kind of limiting his ceiling by doing things like that because he's under 50% of the snaps and there's not really receivers out there to do anything, but they're basically saying, hey, if we're under center, Justin Watson, you're going to be the guy,
right?
And if we're in shotgun, it's probably DeAndre Hopkins.
Mm-hmm.
But it's really tough to figure out this Kansas City situation because everybody is so high-low. We were coming off 3 straight really strong boom weeks from Travis Kelce, and then he's had back-to-back duds, I believe.
Yeah.
And he's 9,600. So it's really hard to just be like, okay, well, is he going to, capitalize? His best game of the season, or his second best game of the season, but start of his big breakout was against the Raiders where he had 10 for 90 and a score. He has a good track record against the Raiders before, so I think he's had a 3 touchdown game as well in years past. So Xavier Worthy, another guy that just, not getting the targets that you'd want him to have, but he could always break out, just like a Jameson Williams, how he always can't be ignored on showdown slates like this.
Yeah, exactly.
But Jameson's had more of those breakout
booms. It would be one thing if I saw the 60-yard long. 31-yard long on this last 5 games is pretty low for him, especially because I do know he has that upside. 54 is his best on the year. So that's what scares me off of him is because we know what type of player he is. It's his freshman year in college player that we need to see. And since that year, he has not really been the deep ball threat that we're hoping for.
Right.
We saw it in preseason, in training camp and stuff like that they were throwing the ball like that. But I need more out of him for sure if I'm going to spend $7,400 on him.
I mean, he's got 6 touchdowns on the year and is still averaging less than 10 points per game. So, but a lot of that had to do with Patrick Mahomes' struggles. It looks like Patrick is starting to kind of get back into form and how we know and respect him to be because he's had three touchdown games in his last 4 games. Obviously, he's somebody that we can't ignore at all based on his upside when it's there. But against the Raiders, we thought because, of the narrative of the Kermit stuff and everything that was going on in the offseason that as soon as he plays the Raiders, it's just going to be he's going to take it to him. He just has an okay game. 19 points, nothing to poo-poo about on a slate like this where there's just not a ton of boom from both sides at least.
Right.
You still might have to play him even if he does only score 17. But, he's starting to get back into the, 300-yard bonus area or 3 touchdown upside, which is, what we know. And then also, occasionally has the rushing upside. He set up the game-winning field goal last week with the 33-yarder in the fourth
Right.
quarter. So
exactly.
Things like that is why he is the most expensive guy on the slate. I think it's really going to be hard to get away from him.
Fair. Talking about the running back situation here, but it's Kareem Hunt if Pacheco's out, and it's a little bit more risky if he's in.
Basically, the way I'm looking at it is if Pacheco's out and he's not returning on the short week this week, then Kareem Hunt in play. I believe against the Raiders, he had fine 13 points, was held in check, but he did score.
Right.
He's been basically their only running back getting goal line opportunities at least. But his production's kind of fallen off in recent weeks, and a lot of that has to do with him not scoring touchdowns like he did the first few games that he was, the guy.
Yeah.
But if Pacheco does play, I don't want either guy.
Yeah, that's how I feel. It's the price is a little tough if you get Pacheco because Pacheco won't play 100% of the snaps. There's no way coming off of his injury.
I have a lot of doubts that he would even get more than 10 opportunities.
That's fair.
And it's just purely because he broke his leg.
Yeah.
I mean, we saw Tony Pollard break his leg in a similar way, and he had a whole offseason because that was the last game of the season for Dallas in that divisional round against San Fran. And the whole first half of the season was not used like a pure, this is all we got. Like he's basically been battling Tyjae Spears when he's been healthy, and he's still having more opportunities in a worse offense with Tennessee than he did last year and thriving doing that.
Right.
And so he obviously was not 100%. So expecting Isaiah Pacheco to come back from a broken leg and then just immediately inherit a ton of touches is just, I think, a tad rich for my liking. A lot of him hasn't been breakaway runs. It's just been volume.
Yes.
And so with him, if he's not getting the 24 touches that he did against Cincinnati or, the 3 targets for 30 yards that he was against Baltimore, that's kind of what his floor, he's always been a floor guy with Kansas City since he's been, the starter. So if he's not having that floor, I don't know if I want to spend up for him at 9,200 in his first game back.
No, I definitely want to stay away. No matter what, I'm not playing Isaiah Pacheco. That would be on my fades list if I had to, if I could write that one in, because if he does play, it just makes Kareem Hunt more murky more than the other way around.
Right.
Butker is on IR, so you still get Schrader as your kicker.
And he had
play
a
him.
double-digit game this past week, I believe, against Carolina. He had 3 field goals, including the game winner. Yeah, 13 fantasy points. So
play him. He's in play for sure. The Chiefs defense that
is the biggest
at 6,800. What the hell?
So I remember one time the defense was 7,000. It was because of a Tommy DeVito-esque situation against like the number
was
one
it Ian
scoring
Book?
defense. Might have been
the Ian Book game.
Yeah, and it was like a 7,000 defense, and we were playing them. But 68 to 32 is the biggest difference in price I've seen between two defenses.
That's crazy.
But the sad thing based on their recent production, because they've been worse in recent weeks, they gave up 27 against Carolina, 30 against Buffalo, and Denver. They just really didn't get any turnovers or anything. Same with Tampa Bay. So they really haven't been playing well. Hard to justify spending up to 6,800, but if it is against Desmond Ridder, you kind of have to fit it in a little bit.
Yeah, that makes me very uncomfortable, though. Let's, talk about some game script. What are you thinking for this game?
So, kind of reading our prep for this show, I can see we're on different wavelengths in this game. I think we're picking the same team to win, but I think Kansas City kind of shows their muscles a little bit on this game. A lot of it having to do with just Raiders not having the quarterback to keep up. If they just kind of hold Kansas City's offense in check, then that's one thing. But their offense is starting to kind of put up some points, like we hadn't seen in the first half of the year. So I picked Kansas City 27-10, and just kind of an ugly game to watch from a aesthetic perspective, but just hoping that you have the right build that makes you win a lot of money and be happier with your product that you're watching.
Yeah, I did write that I think the Raiders score more points. We actually had the same amount of points for KC at 27. They haven't scored over 30 points, I believe, at all this year, except for maybe one game.
Well, they just did.
Yeah,
on
I
a
was going
game
to say
winner.
the 30-point game this week, but yeah, I don't. Okay, they have 30. They haven't scored over 30 points.
Yes.
As I said, that was how I worded that, I think. But so I added KC 27 to 21. Like we said earlier, the Raiders in the past 2 years have had pretty close games at KC, 20 to 14 and 30 to 29. On top of that, KC only has 2 wins of 10 or more on the season. So they play close games, and we know that. Like, we know that they're winning these close games. They're basically Minnesota of 2 years ago.
Yeah, where
I
they
think.
were 13-0 one-score games.
Yeah, exactly. So they're winning close games. They're doing a really good job. They find a way to win, but it's just, I think that the Raiders score more than expected here. And I don't really know how they're going to do it. So
Could be a defensive touchdown last year. That's what helped him out.
Jack Jones is one of the best. He has the most interceptions, 4 touchdowns, I believe, of any player in the league. One of the top 5 at least, because he jumps routes, short routes, so good, but he doesn't get interceptions otherwise. He just, when he intercepts the ball, he scores.
Basically, if I remember correctly, how the Raiders kind of won and held on was they had that pick 6, and then on the ensuing kickoff, causing a fumble on the first play on a strip sack, and then getting the ball inside the 5. So they scored 2 touchdowns within a span of 14 seconds, and then all of a sudden, Kansas City just never took the lead back.
Yeah,
and that's kind of what took place here. So if you think it's a closer game, that kind of scenario where Patrick Mahomes has not been taking care of the football, he has of late, but this year he has over 10 picks already. So it's kind of like one of those things where I see exactly what you're seeing with Kansas City's defense not being as great. They're playing close games way too often, way too much, and their offense just, it's not what we're accustomed to seeing.
Right.
So I understand it. It's just more so the lack of confidence, and because, like you said, I don't know how we're to get the 3 touchdowns.
Right, for sure.
And that's because I can't paint that picture. That's why I had to score the way I did.
Well, the other thing for me is if Desmond Ridder is playing, this is a completely different score in my opinion. If Aiden's playing, we can weather some storms a little bit better. But if Desmond Ridder comes in, I'm very uncomfortable. And one thing I did say is I think most of our builds are going to be both 4-2 or 5-1. I don't think you can get away from that. I think that's just how it's going to have to be. And this will not be one of my spread picks. Like, I don't.
Yeah.
I'm at it's minus 13, or minus 12.5. But I'm like, well, I have him at 6, and I'm still not comfortable with that at one bit, because this could be an absolute blowout, like you said. Let's talk about some must plays.
All right, yeah, my must play, and I think it might be a similar if we got to do the same thing. But Patrick Mahomes, I don't think this is a double fade quarterback. This is definitely not a double play both quarterbacks. But you got to play Mahomes on this one. Again, there's not many people where they're getting consistent enough booms to where he can have that pedestrian 17 points and still not be optimal. And so because of all of these skill players on both sides just being so low floor and ceilings not even being extreme, other than I guess Kelsey, if it's one of his, vintage Kelsey games, I think that basically he's the highest scoring guy on the slate, and that's why you can't avoid him.
What do you think his roster percentage is if you didn't know?
He's got to be like 90.
It's 85.
Yeah.
So, and I think that's low. I agree with you.
Yeah, I think he's probably going to be over 90%. And the way to have leverage isn't by playing all of Mahomes. It's playing basically every line that you have with him at captain. And I think that's the only way to be different or get different from the field, because that forces you to fade one of Bowers and Kelsey, and then also have to go multiple uncomfortable mid-price guys like Worthy.
Right, exactly.
So
completely agree with that. My must play, because I have to play a Las Vegas Raider, is going to be Jacoby Myers. Jacoby Myers has been really good this year, since he's come back and Devontae Adams has been out. As long as Aiden O'Connell is the quarterback, I'm comfortable playing him as my one Raider at 8,000. I think he should be a cash type of play, because you do have to play a Raider.
Right.
So he's the guy that I'm thinking about when I start my lines, is like, okay, which Raider do I want? It's Jacoby.
Yeah, and Bryce Young kind of pieced up this defense this past week. So I'm not shocked if a couple of these Raiders actually have really solid value based on their prices because they're all cheap other than Bowers.
Right.
And so 8,000 for a guy that's had 11 targets plus in 2 of the last 3 weeks.
Cheap.
He scored in the last time he played the Chiefs in his first game back.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm on board with that.
And he's cheaper than DeAndre Hopkins and just barely over Xavier Worthy, and he's been way better than both of them. So
I think he's to me the safest receiver on the entire slate. And I don't know if unless it's a multi-touchdown game by one of the two, or we finally get the Xavier Worthy more than 30-yarder
right.
that we should be seeing. Unless that happens, it's Jacoby all the way.
Yep.
So I agree.
And then what is your fade?
My fade is I'm gonna say either Raider quarterback. It doesn't matter who it is.
Okay.
And that's just purely based on the score that I projected. Just if I don't think somebody's going to score more than 13 points, that means you're only scoring one touchdown, and that may not even involve you. So you're going to have less than 13-ish points. And with that being said, if you can't come close to that 300 bonus, you're not going to be involved on 2 touchdowns. I don't want to spend that for you. And so being 8,800, 86, very modest for a starting quarterback, but I'm just not going to do it.
Fair enough. More comfortable playing Kareem Hunt in that situation.
Mm-hmm.
My fade is going to be I want to say the Raider running back situation. So unless both Madison and White are ruled out again, I'd rather just get away from. So if everybody plays, I'm off of the Raiders running back situation. If nobody plays, I'm playing Amir Abdullah. Basically,
Right.
is the thing, because Amir Abdullah becomes a really good value if that happens. But I will say,
I hope it makes it easy and just say let's let all these running backs play, and so we'll fade them all.
Exactly.
Both running backs on both sides.
Exactly.
The same thing. I completely agree with that sentiment. I'm the same way with the Kansas City running backs if Pacheco plays, because basically Hunt would have to score twice because he'll have 6 carries for 30 yards on his backup usage. He's not going to have much of a pass game role, I don't believe, because that's been Samaje Perine in 2-minute drills and stuff like that. So yeah, just way too murky on both sides. But again, Raiders were really bad running the football last time they played Kansas City.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, I agree with that.
Okay, so I will let you do your contrarian play, and then we'll go on to.
So my contrarian play is just going. I'm going to throw out Xavier Worthy just because he's in that weird range of pricing where he doesn't really have the floor. He's kind of by himself, but he's in between a Chiefs defense that I think will be more popular.
Mhm.
I think Jacoby Myers will be more popular, and if people are going to play a Kansas City Chief receiver, I think DeAndre Hopkins will be more popular.
Yeah.
So he's the lowest owned of those 4. But again, we're thinking for upside and stuff like that. So if he finally has that upside game, I think that's leverage on the field.
Perfect. Well, mine is going to be Michael Mayer, who is 1,600. If you have a last piece in, he's to me the best last piece under. Let's see, Noah Gray from 3,600. I think the best next play is going to be Michael Mayer at 1,600. Mecole Hardman, I think he's getting some snaps, but nothing comfortable. He's getting 5%. Yeah, never mind. Justin Watson just runs wind sprints, so I'm not comfortable with him. DJ Turner, he's been on the field, but not excited about him in any way, I guess. Let's see what his snap count was this last week. 62%, which is really good. So maybe if you'd rather go there, I get it. He did have 4 targets last week, but I just think, I think Mayer's going to get more snaps since he's been injured. He's going to start ramping up.
I mean, the first look we never talk about before the show just because we like surprising ourselves. And I don't know how different our lines will be because we do actually have very different game scripts. But Michael Mayer was the first thing that stood out to me when I was scrolled all the way down to see what I could afford and
right.
get. And so 1,600 for a guy that does get decent amount of target usage and is just coming kind of back and going to probably flirt back with, early in the season when he was 62% of the snaps while Brock Bowers still playing 70%. I think how the world that he doesn't get at least 3 targets, I think is just not in this outcome.
And he's $1,600 and you're
Exactly.
getting, so, all right, let's build some lines. I'm going to let you go first.
All right.
Or I can go first, either way, because it doesn't matter. I think we're going to build something very similar.
Right. So I'm going to start off. I'm going to say Mahomes at captain.
Okay.
I just want the raw points from him. Let's put in Travis Kelce, and let's put in Xavier Worthy.
Okay.
Oh boy. And then, and only then, are we going to let's put in Jacoby Myers at 8,000.
Okay.
It's 44. Okay. Not enough for Chiefs defense. Well, actually, yeah, it is. So go Chiefs defense and then Michael Mayer. That's my first build.
Okay. So we have 4 out of 6 the same.
Mm-hmm.
Very, very. I think this is going to be how we're going to build a lot. I think obviously if you wanted to put Kelce at captain, you could.
And then obviously you can also afford Hopkins over Jacoby if you want to. I think possibly you might even have more owner, or Hopkins might have less ownership.
Yeah, if you're going to go 5-1 and like how you're writing the script, you might want like the 5-1 with Hopkins instead.
Mm-hmm.
I'm actually going to just switch some stuff out. I'm going to take the Chiefs defense out. I'm going to take Xavier Worthy out, and I'm going to go up to Hopkins. And then I'm going to leave $1,200 on the board and play the kicker.
I like that a lot,
now,
actually.
I also, if I don't play the kicker and say we do get the situation where Amir Abdullah is the starter, you just go straight to him.
Right.
It is a 3-3 build, which isn't as comfortable, but I'm also predicting more points.
And it's way different from the field.
Exactly. So that's something you can do, but I'm definitely not doing that unless that situation happens. I will be playing it like this.
Well, plus rarely do you see, defense / kicker from the same team combined for over 50% ownership.
Right.
And this is a scenario where I think both of them will get about 25%, despite the Chiefs being that expensive, just because I think a lot of people are going to be, like I said earlier, doing 5-1 builds and expecting a blowout. And if you think it's closer, the way to get different is getting it closer to a 3-3 build.
Yeah.
And even if you're doing that, like doing Michael Mayer as the last guy in, that's like really a half guy.
Yeah.
Not necessarily a full 3-3 build.
Yeah.
And then the value of the hypothetical Amir Abdullah can't be ignored, even though, it is gross.
Hey.
If basically he just needs to outscore Schrader in that scenario. And if Schrader gets 10, but Abdullah gets 5 receptions, it's hard to not see him get over 10 points in that regard, like he did last week. And then obviously Jacoby Myers being one of the safest plays. Brought Bowers uncomfortably. I don't know how we're going to be able to get to him this week.
Yeah, I think you could. Well, I didn't mean to do that, but that's okay. Let's put some guys in. I think if you went
you'd have to go a cheap captain if you did.
Well, yeah.
You think you can fit all 3 like that?
I mean, if you went DeAndre, there. Like
he's 35.
I would
that's
kicker,
enough for Schrader and
Mayer.
Yeah. We're gonna load up on Mayer on this slate. I can already tell
because he's free. He's free. I mean, he shouldn't be 1,600.
Right.
We didn't get any Noah Gray, which actually scares me a little bit. So I think he's important.
For what it is worth, DJ Turner is actually projecting pretty well at 5.76, which is the second highest value on the slate outside of Clyde Edwards-Helaire at minimum price, and he has been inactive, healthy scratch without Isaiah Pacheco.
Yeah, I don't understand that.
Yeah, highest values are always going to, if you are projecting anything at $200, you're going to be the highest value.
Right.
So the true highest value on the slate is between DJ Turner and McCole Hardman. But again, we just talked about McCole Hardman only having 5 snaps this past week. He is a guy that when he is on the field, they actually give him a couple of targets.
Yeah.
But at the same time, that's just not a situation I want to even touch this week.
Yeah, I think we're asking for a lot if we went in that direction. But yeah, let's get out of here because I feel like we have a very similar feel on how this game's going to go. If y'all want to play our lines, you will have to be in the Discord. We'll be sending those in there right before, I guess, on Friday or Thursday night, just depending on when we get some news about these running backs.
Yeah, that's going to be everything because if none of the running backs that are questionable play, then Amir Abdullah is going to be in play for lines. I don't know if I can just immediately say outright fade Kareem Hunt.
Yeah.
Maybe I might force one line with him because I think his ownership won't be too chalky.
Right.
Those kinds of things are decisions that will affect this slate immensely.
Desmond Ridder is going to really affect how I see this game.
Exactly.
Because I think he's pretty bad at football. And so that definitely will affect how we're going to play this slate. So definitely get in our Discord. On top of that, we will be doing our first ever giveaway, and it's going to be through a contest. We want everybody to jump in the contest. So basically, what we're going to be doing is a bowl pick'em, where on ESPN, Cam or I will create the lobby, and you enter the lobby. You make your bowl predictions. If you get first place, we'll be giving y'all a $25 NFL Shop gift card. Really excited. We have been so lucky to have such a great community we're building. We want to, interact some more, and I think that that'll be a fun way to interact, because I don't like just giveaways where you just type in the comments. No, let's earn that giveaway. Let's enjoy it together and have some fun. And at that point, it's on you. If you do well, then you get the $25 gift card. If not, we'll have more later on, of course. And we're really excited. There's so many things coming out this week. We have Thanksgiving special for the Thanksgiving slate. And then we also have this Friday night slate, which will be fun. We have Maine, and we have our live stream. We have so much going on. It's very exciting.
Yeah, and I do want to point out, because we're not getting to props, but there's also not a lot because of the running back questionables. There's literally no rushing props other than quarterback, which is Patrick Mahomes. But if I had to pick my prop of this Showdown slate in general, I think it would be Xavier Worthy at 35.5 receiving yards.
Okay.
He hit this one in the last game against the Raiders. He hit this by at least 10 yards in both of the last two games. So it's just one of those that if he's my contrarian play, he better get over 35 yards. That's what I'm saying. And then I know you might not have looked, but I know that your favorite one will obviously be Jacoby Myers, over 52.5 receiving yards.
Fair.
He did not hit that in his first game back by a yard. But again, 2 of the last 3 games, over 100 receiving yards. He's just got all the volume to make that work. And I think Kansas City has just been a little bit more susceptible in the past game in recent weeks.
I just worry about Desmond Ridder. Man, if Desmond Ridder comes in, we might get 120 yards passing. So I don't want to put anything in yet because of that, because we don't have that information. Mm-hmm. If Desmond Ridder plays, I would play unders on receiving yards. Not for Jacoby Myers. He's a little scary, but other guys.
But truly, when is this video coming out? Is this coming out before Thanksgiving?
This comes out on Thanksgiving.
On Thanksgiving. Okay. So if you're able to get it before, if you watch this before Thursday Night Football, Tyreek Hill free square on Prize Picks. Right. $0, 25 max to play. Prize Picks is doing promos all week, so the rest of the weekend, look for those promos, and then the Friday Flex. I'm sure there will be a big special for Black Friday Flex.
Right.
And then also an Underdog. They're going to be doing some stuff this week. I just had a surprise in my lobby as we were recording this, so a lot of fun stuff. They're just giving you free extra money. So let's put some picks together as a community, and let's make some this holiday weekend.
Yeah, and if you're not in our Discord, get in there so you can see those picks that we're going to put together for also Prize Picks on Underdog, not just our final lines that we'll be doing for the DFS slate. Mm-hmm. But we appreciate y'all hanging out with us, and we'll see y'all on the next one.